On the Lord of Hero,
Nick,
on the Lord of Hero,
Nick,
on the Ricky Ticky Low while living #1 Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon, the first ever network for kids. What began in 1977 as a network titled Pinwheel would later be rebranded as Nickelodeon in 1979, with the first series being the sketch comedy show You Can't Do That on Television. Around the 1980s, the network would not only change its logo to the famous splat most hardcore Nick fans would recognize, but also reimagine its identity after low ratings. Eventually, they began to focus on making shows for children and children specifically. Then in 1991, Nickelodeon began to air the first original creator-driven shows. Ever since, there have been numerous iconic programs, from the nautical nonsense of SpongeBob SquarePants to the web series shenanigans of iCarly. The channel would rival the likes of Cartoon Network and Disney, and I would certainly watch it the most. But right now, it isn't a stretch to say that Nickelodeon ain't what it used to be. In recent years, many of the show's creators would reveal to be terrible or unjust people. Take Dan Schneider for instance. When Jeanette McCurdy admitted what happened behind the set of iCarly, it changes how you view the show and her character. Same for Butch Hartman, John Kricfalusi, and Chris Savina. And the new logo just isn't as visually appealing as the older one. It feels like Nickelodeon isn't trying anymore with its content. However, I want to look back at the golden age of Nickelodeon shows. The ones that understood its audience and offered some genuine creativity. I also want to look at shows that I don't see getting talked about as much. I'm excluding stuff like the Fairly OddParents or SpongeBob SquarePants, since those are obvious choices. So with that out of the way, these are my top 10 Nickelodeon shows.
Wait. You mean he's gonna be my stepfather? And you're gonna be he's gonna be my... Hug me, brother!
Starting off the countdown is another Schneider's Bakery program, Drake and Josh. This sitcom about stepbrothers Drake Parker and Josh Nichols feels like a spiritual successor to Kenan and Kel, a show about two buddies with contrasting traits that get into comedic situations in the strangest ways possible. If you grew up in the 2000s, then chances are you may stumble upon this show at some point. Of all the shows Dan Schneider has created, Drake and Josh has some of the more grounded teenage problems aside from Zoe 101. One thing that stands out besides the theme song is the humor. The show relies on over-the-top acting, witty dialogue, physical stunts, and of course, the laugh track. Now, the laugh track in general is fine. I don't mind when sitcoms use it, but I feel the jokes would have more impact from the actual viewers, not artificial ones. Especially since most of the show's humor I find to be mean-spirited and sadistic. Characters getting abused, downer endings, and cynical antagonists. These kinds of jokes leave a bad taste in my mouth. But then you have one of those gags that are so famous, they become memes. As for the characters, they're, for the most part, fairly entertaining. The premiere does a great job establishing how these two brothers' personalities clash with each other. Opposites attract, if you will. Drake is the suave woman charmer with harebrained schemes, while Josh is a geeky, awkward kid who plays by the rules. Their parents are firm and oblivious, and Megan is the cute but scheming younger sister who pranks her brothers in such cruel manners. But the relationship of the bros is usually the focus of each episode. The best thing about their dynamic is that they always have each other's back. Early on, Drake takes advantage of Josh, but as the series progresses, he begins to appreciate him more. Most notably in one of the most iconic episodes, Josh is Done. Josh has had enough of Drake's shenanigans affecting him, and Drake continuously has bad luck at every turn.
I need you more than you need me. I need you way more than you need me, alright? I'm sorry. Man, I'm sorry I made you late for your exam, and I'm sorry I ran over your bike, and I'm sorry I'm probably the worst brother in the world, and, you're way better off without me, I just need you to understand that, sorry, Josh, I'm sorry.
The other supporting characters are fun too, with quirky trademarks. Like Helen's sass and fondness towards Drake, Craig and Eric's nerdy banter, and Crazy Steve's non sequiturs.
Cock-a-doodle-doo, the cow says boo! Cock-a-doodle-doo, the cow pays boo!
There are characters that are only exclusive in Season 1, but they're minors, so it doesn't matter to me. The reason Drake and Josh is ranked bottom for me is that the show treats its main characters with such malice, especially the ones that don't deserve it. It's relatable, but also cruel. Almost too cruel. But if you're in a 2000s Nickelodeon nostalgia mood, then give these two knuckleheads a watch. The pair were chosen simply because Schneider felt they were great at creating comedic conflict. Just keep in mind that Drake Bell is no longer the person we thought he was.
The Drew character seems pretty cool.
Yeah. Why do they make the Jerry character such a dork?
I'm not gonna do it. You're gonna do it, Jerry. Not Jerry.
Ladies and gentlemen of Japan, today I am honored to give you the most exciting thing to happen to television since me. Mikey Simon!
His head is as big as 20 men.
What? No, that's just a picture.
Ah yes, Kevin Mikey. Who can forget that show about a redhead who's big in Japan? I didn't. The show follows struggling American actor Mikey Simon, who wins a contest to star in a popular action show called Lily Moon. I remember watching this on the Nicktoons network when it was on. There was the pilot for MTV with rough visuals and unfinished audio, though that one was more edgy than the final product. The show is a fish out of water story, but what separates this premise from the others is the presentation. It's an anime-influenced show that pokes fun at anime tropes, such as the eye drops, chibi proportions, and the lines over eyes. Most of these parodies are incredibly blatant, but that's the fun. It's no wonder that anime creators are fans of this show. There's also nods to Japanese culture, like folklore, a prime minister, yen, and mentions of real-life places.
Mr. Stereo's son is a great fan of our show. He wants to meet you all at his birthday party today. The party starts in 1 hour at Yoyogi Park.
The name Kappa Mikey is based off a real sushi roll. It proves that the creative team did their research. I approve. As for the art style, Mikey is rendered in thick American outlines, while everyone else is rendered in anime. Frankly, the art style for this show isn't that appealing to me. The animation is stiff in some early episodes, some designs are ugly, and some 3D models are poorly composited. To be fair, it was a rare look for cartoons at the time, but I can see the style being off-putting for some. However, I do enjoy when the show takes on a stylistic change, depending on the humor. The humor has a sitcom feel to it. The show relies on fast-paced jokes and cutaway gags, but also pop culture references, and I don't just mean anime. Some are either obvious or obscure. The episode titles and plots are plays on movies or books, particularly Splashmon, referencing Rashomon, a common storytelling device. The weakest part of the humor were the fart jokes. I giggle at some of these, but fart jokes are pretty lowbrow in general. The characters are memorable for the right and wrong reasons. Mikey is selfish and narcissistic, but does end up doing the right thing. Konar is the endearing, dim-witted comic relief with a love for sandwiches. Wano is the nervous Pokemon expert who's committed to his job and fears Ozu. Lily is the prissy diva, jealous of Mikey's intrusion and popularity. Mitsuki is the kind, level-headed one who immediately falls in love with Mikey. Ozu is the strict, easily angered producer who thinks of publicity stunts. Nearly everyone is scared of him. And Yes Man, yes it's actually his name, is the punching bag with his own side gags and non-sequiturs. Their personalities can make or break your enjoyment. Like Gonard's stupidity gets irritating when overdone, but their quirks are what help them stand out. What's also surprising is that the show has twists and continuity nods that stick with the rest of the show.
You Lily Moo kids think you're so tough because you sent me to prison. Twice.
Very few shows I know do this. Season 2 is a slight step up, with more fluid animation and personal morals. If this show came out at a time when anime was popular, it probably could have gotten a 3rd season. But if you're a hardcore anime fan, you'll have a blast with the man that is Kappa Mikey.
So it seems you will be staying with us for some time. A welcoming present.
Cool. Cards? Mikey Simon cards.
This can be between us.
what? It's time for Oh Yeah Cartoons!
Now, this is an anthology series, so I'm not sure if this counts, but I'm doing it anyway. The entire program was headed by Fred Seibert, founder of Fredera's Studios. Prior to Nickelodeon, he served as the last president of Hanna-Barbera, where he helped launch the What a Cartoon program. It was creator-driven, meaning various creators had the freedom to conceive any concept they wanted to. 3 shorts per episode, and each short was about 7 minutes. It was a new concept at the time. Afterwards, he moved to Nickelodeon to create the aforementioned Fredera's Studios, where he launched Oh Yeah Cartoons. Think of it as the Nickelodeon equivalent of What a Cartoon. In a Nick Animation interview, he discussed how no one at the time ever talked with kids about what they like. Seibert encouraged Nickelodeon and partner Alan Goodman to give the network a clubhouse feel to it, something that gives out the phrase kid empowerment. And Oh Yeah Cartoons brings that energy with their shorts. Seibert also mentioned that he had faith in the creative person's voice. This project not only helped skyrocket some of the network's popular shows, but there was so much variety in styles and storytelling. It was like a mini animation festival, showcasing the talent of Robin Zetti, Dave Wasson, Alex Kerwan, Bob Boyle, and Bill Burnett. The format was the same as What a Cartoon, but these featured wraparounds with live-action kids in Season 1, while the latter 2 seasons featured Nick stars, Kenan Thompson in Season 2, and Josh Server in Season 3. Because of the format, some of the shorts have simple plots and rough pacing, but they're able to stand on their own. Some feel like throwbacks to older cartoons or parodies of classic movies. Some of my personal highlights include The Feelers, an insect rock band that tried to get noticed by recording in a studio. The song featured has a catchy melody and unique, abstract visuals. Magic Trixie features a young, aspiring magician that faces off a rather shady magician. There's strong UPA influence, appealing color schemes, and plenty of fourth wall or physics humor. Blotto is about an ink blot that tries to woo a red lady, but is in competition with a comic book villain. It's another music-based cartoon, but I like how the tempo changes depending on who's singing.
That ink stinks! It's an inky stank world! Gonna leave now for a new world! Ink stinks!
It's an ink world, paradise here. It's an ink world, cause your man's here.
The live-action setting in the intro and playing around with the environment are also nice touches. Mina and the Count I found to be the most charming of these shorts. A young girl hangs out with a vampire at a castle. I found the chemistry between this duo to be adorable, but I can see why this wasn't made into a show. Due to, implications. Anyway, this project must have been a blast to work on as a creator. I appreciate the hard work that went into making these shorts, even if they weren't greenlit. Either way, I commend Oh Yeah Cartoons for helping these people get their start in animation.
Oh yeah! Cartoons!
Hey, Big B, been in the girls' bathroom lately? I'm that Big B, and I like to use the girls' room.
I was 5! It was kindergarten!
A show about surviving middle school has now become a tool for surviving life. Enter Net's Declassified School Survival Guide. Results may vary. It's about poor student everyman Ned Bigby and his 2 best friends Jennifer Mosley and Simon Nelson Cook, or Mose and Cookie as they're referred to in the show, dealing with the struggles of middle school. The show was the creation of Scott Fells, former staff and story editor on The Fairly OddParents, creator of another show coming up on the list, and Johnny Test. You know, that one show with too many whip cracks.
Okay, that is enough!
Each episode has the main trio encounter a typical school issue, such as bullies, teachers, crushes, or procrastination. Ned would give advice to either his friends or the audience, with graphics to illustrate his points. Ned has harebrained schemes, Mose is a tomboy with common sense, and Cookie is the technology-obsessed one who attempts to impress the ladies. There are usually 2 or 3 plots taking center stage, which can feel crammed in due to the runtime being 11 minutes, but all relate to the theme of the episode. However, much like Scott Fell's other works, there's instances of recurring trademarks, like overused sound cues, recycled jokes, and over-the-top acting. The supporting characters are also victims of this. Some are one-note jokes like fast-talking Martin Corley, Timmy Toot Toot, or dumb blonde Seth Powers, while others are punchlines such as the unlucky brown-haired coconut head or Claire Sawyer, future lawyer. But fortunately, they're not as painful and are accompanied by physical humor, such as mannequins, dated CGI, and cardboard cutouts. The credits even feature bloopers, so at the very least, everyone was having fun in this show. Regarding characters, this cast is pretty diverse. I like how some of them are revealed to have hidden depths or breaking stereotypes. The teachers can serve as mentors to the kids, while also forming unlikely friendships with them. Most commonly is Gory, the lazy janitor who spends his time catching the weasel and helping the trio with their shenanigans, but he does offer some genuine advice before going off the deep end. Mr. Sweet's stern and sadistic attitude turned me off first, but over the time, I grew to appreciate how he does have faith in Ned that he can do better. Vice Principal Krupp steals the show whenever he's on screen. His Magnum PI outfit, complemented by his bumbling incompetence, makes his character enjoyable. The show goes insane with its set designs, whether it's a Secret Agent parody where Sweeney is the villain, or a Halloween Horror School where Ned is a vampire and Gory is a zombie. The show even had some surprising guest stars. Ned's Declassified is a show that's still remembered for its tips throughout middle school and life in general, and that's a testament for how influential this show was.
What a weird dream. You were in it?
You okay, little guy?
You were there? And you?
Here's your box back.
And you?
Get back to work, slacker.
And... I've never seen you before.
You're off model, kangaroo boy.
Rocko's Modern Life is a show that not many others talk about. It was one of the most iconic 90s shows of the network, being released on VHS along with other shows. It features a wallaby named Rocko and day-to-day shenanigans as he's literally shoved into real life with his cow buddy Heifer and nerdy turtle Flipper. This came in an era where Nickelodeon was still encouraging creator-driven content. Creator Joe Murray gave the crew members autonomy, meaning he gave the crew freedom towards visual storytelling and directing. Most of who would go on to work on other shows with a similar board-driven process. Some migrators include Steve Hillenburg, Mr. Lawrence, Jay Lender, and of course Dan Pobermeyer and Jeffrey Marsh. Most episodes that Pobermeyer and Marsh worked on had songs, which is a sign of things to come, including self-aware jokes of song structure.
It's going to be a song, isn't it?
Speaking of creative freedom, Rocko got away with a good chunk of adult humor. Murray wanted to create a balance between child-friendly and mature content, jokes that flew over the heads of the target demographic. These include Mrs. Bighead seducing Rocko, Heifer literally goes to hell, our restaurant is called Choky Chicken, and most of the titles are puns on adult sayings. Carnal knowledge is a pun on carnal knowledge, which means sexual intercourse. Rocko was meant to satirize social topics like weight loss, family disownment, pollution, and even the animation pipeline. Wacky Deli is basically the crew poking fun at the conditions they had to face. The characters are also brought to life with the ensemble cast. This is one of Carlos Alazraki's first voice acting gigs. The big head's son Ralph is voiced by Joe Murray, who's just using his natural voice.
I think you've got your finger on the pulse of America.
The art style is very twisted and bizarre, especially with how slanted the buildings are. Being storyboard driven means there are tons of wild expressions drawn. This look is also retained in title cards, which have unique color schemes and composition. Most artists and voice actors would collaborate with Murray's later works, and it wouldn't be until 2019 Rocko got his own movie on Netflix, Static Cling, proving the show still had an audience. So remember, be hot, be naughty, and be curious. Actually, just do the last thing.
Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Rocko? Mrs. Bighead?
Let me guess. You have a better idea. Well, let's hear it. Let's hear the dog's better song title.
Big Time Rush.
Big Time Rush was airing at a time where Nickelodeon was trying to cash in the teen demographic that Disney popularized. Except that this is genuinely entertaining. Our second Scott Fell show follows 4 hockey players who take an opportunity to become famous pop stars but I have to face the struggles and standards of the music industry, and their egocentric loud boss, Gustavo. The idea came when Scott Phelps was approached by Nickelodeon to come up with an idea for a kids' music show, and he thought of the world's worst boy band. The characters I found to be more likable and charming rather than irritating. The boys had great chemistry with how they genuinely like spending time with each other, but also get into conflicts occasionally. Kendall is the leader, who for the most part is the voice of reason delivering pep talks, though he can be very hot-headed. Carlos has a wild imagination, always taking his helmet for extra precaution. Logan is the more logical, though he can be just as timid or unstable. And James is the arrogant pretty boy of the group, with a brain the size of a peanut. The supporting cast also shine through their personalities or quirks. A neat thing is how we see people who are normally voice actors try out their hand at live acting to explore more of their range. Actors that have worked with Fellows before also reappear. Darren Norris is just playing the same role as a janitor from Ned's Declassified. This show also doesn't shy away from guest stars or nods to other Nickelodeon shows. The slapstick and physical humor of this quartet reminded me of Drake and Josh, with lots of fighting and pratfalls, which is complemented by Guy Moon's cartoon score. It's worth noting that he also composed music for Danny Phantom, Back at the Barnyard, and The Fairly Odd Parents.
Odd Parents, and hopefully your big-time cartoon, Mr. Butch Hartman. Hi, I'm Butch Hartman.
BTR is one of the more realistic depictions of boy bands. They started out as nobodies, to playing a concert, to making cameos. The music videos featured at the end of episodes have so much variety in presentation and visuals. The show satirizes the music industry with all the corporate mandates, security guards, and scandals. They're on the news more often than you think. I enjoyed watching the show, laughing more than expected. If you're into teenage sitcoms without laugh tracks, watch Big Time Rush. And like the group says, opportunities like this come once in a lifetime.
Oh, you're such a turd. Oh yeah, giant turd. And you look like a turd and you smell like a turd. Oh, you're such a turd. Oh yeah, a giant turd. And you look like a turd. Ah! Nick, 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 Nick.
Would you please stop singing?
Proximity warning. Planet ahead.
Invader Zim has been some sort of a mystery. Premiering on the same day as FOP, the show follows an alien named Zim, who is sent to Earth to plot its destruction, but not without complications getting in the way, including his bumbling lackey Gur and paranoid arch-enemy Dib. Invader Zim was one of Nickelodeon's darkest shows, with how ominous and off-putting it was. The fact that this show got greenlit on a network like this is astonishing. Other Nicktoons before and after Zim had their share of dark content, but this show rivals the likes of Courage the Cowardly Dog, not being afraid to scare their viewers. The creator, Jonan Vasquez, was inspired by science fiction concepts like aliens or parasites. He also loved being uncomfortable by such things. He even described the show as relentless. I couldn't agree more. The humor comes from how unnatural the episode concepts are. From Zim befriending someone who crosses the line to being a stalker, to Zim obtaining organs to appear more human. The writers were allowed to write, I quote, insane dialogue, and that's complimented by the voice actors. Richard Horvitz hams it up to the point of over the top.
Too ugly! Too stinky!
Andy Berman gives a paranoid demeanor to Dib, adding to his conspiracy theorist personality. Melissa Phan gives Gaz, Dib's sister, a cute but sadistic inflection, and Gur's VA, Ricky Simmons, gives an adorably irritating voice to portray Gur's brainless attitude. Most of the other voice actors are either screaming their lines or just high-pitched. Where the show is appealing most is in the art direction. Unlike other Nicktoons, which have vibrant colors, Invader Zim goes for a muted, gritty mixed palette of purples, greens, and reds, complete with characters that have sharp, angular designs. CGI models are also incorporated, and despite being somewhat dated, it blends with the art style pretty well. The imagery is full of shadows, signifying unpleasant scenes. Most of the characters end up in pain or die on screen. The music by Kevin Manthei is wonderfully ominous, mixing in that horror aspect, which is complemented in the theme and end title songs. The world of Zim is so cynical and depressing. Rocko had this theme of cynicism too, but Zim kicks it up to where half the students are antisocial freaks or paranoid loners. The school is treated like a prison, with a hall pass exploding on anyone who dare leaves. They send kids out of a store on dangerous zip lines. Dib often ends up as the one who's seen as crazy, even when evidence of Zim being an alien is right under the nose. I'm not one for horror, but credit where credit is due. I was fascinated by how satisfyingly horrific this show was. Shame it was cancelled midway through season 2's production, but thankfully it got a movie in 2019 on Netflix. Just goes to show, Zim hasn't left people's minds.
Zim! Don't use the time machine. Love Zim!
Remember, kids, friendship beats evil mind control every time. Isn't that right, Smooch?
Spooch loves Grognard. Spooch!
Hey guys, ever notice how the cartoons we watch are kinda just like our missions?
Seriously? You're reading way too much into a cartoon show, Mikey.
I've been a partial fan of the Ninja Turtles for a few years. The 1990 film still holds up with its cinematography and acting. I own a DVD of the original 1987 series, but the 2012 series resonates with me the most. That's not to say the shows before and after 2012 do not have merit to them. This series came from the mind of Ciro Nelli, creator of Super Robot Monkey, Team Hyperforce Go, and most notably a director for Teen Titans. In fact, a few crew members from that show worked on this and shows. There's a good chunk of anime-influenced shots and expressions. Ciro was a huge TMT fan and got the job by showing his interpretations of the team. He was also inspired by the rawness of the Eastman Laird comics. This is especially true in the illustrated flashbacks. Nickelodeon has had their share of CGI shows, ranging from quality and appeal, but Ninja Turtles 2012 embraces this technology, adding some expressions or nuances that only CGI could pull off. The show has an ambitious cinematic approach to its presentation. The camera angles dive right into the action, motion blurs and impact frames are used for emphasis. The lighting and shadows set the tone and atmosphere. Scenes are edited in slow motion to create the impact. Bardell Animation was in charge of the animation, including layout and modeling. They also handled the animation for Teen Titans Go. And say what you will about that show, but TMT proves these people have talent, especially with how creative the mutants are. This show combines the humor of the 80s show, the serialization of the 2003 show, and the darker themes of the 1990 movie. The episode Trans-Dimensional Turtles is an entire homage to the 80s show, poking fun at its campy quality.
What's up with the initials on your belts? Lame.
They even got the original voice cast back. Characters such as Mono Gecko and Slash are voiced by Robbie Riss and Corey Feldman respectively. They voiced Mikey and Donnie in the 90s movie. You could tell the creators were huge fans of the franchise, going as far to incorporate these classic elements. This show also had a phenomenal voice cast. Mae Whitman, Gregory Sipes, and Kevin Michael Richardson are all well known. LaShawn Astin as Raph and Seth Green as Leo are definitely the standout performances. Hoon Lee gives up a strict but understanding voice for Splinter, who acts more like a father than he's ever been. Every time his sons disobey him, he disciplines them. The only character I feel is underdeveloped is Casey Jones, voiced by Josh Peck. We never really learn more about this character, like his family or his life. What he does contribute to is a love triangle between him, April, and Donnie, whose crush almost crosses the line into stalker. Some plot points don't get resolved, and I wasn't too fond of Season 5. There are more one-off adventures, or concluding stories from the past seasons. But otherwise, I find this to be the best iteration of the Heroes in a Half show. It's an amalgamation of the franchise in both big and small ways.
That's some kung fu, Frog.
We're not kung fu frogs. We're Ninja Turtles.
You're an airbender.
Sure am. Giant light beams, flying bison, airbenders. I think I got Midnight Sun Madness. I'm going home to where stuff makes sense.
Nickelodeon has had their share of action shows, but the one that stood out the most, without doubt, was Avatar: The Last Airbender. 12-year-old Aang, the next reincarnation of the Avatar, is given the task of restoring peace to the world by defeating the Fire Lord. But first, he must master all 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air. This didn't look or sound like anything from your typical Nickelodeon show. It featured an anime-esque style akin to Princess Mononoke. Martin Mystery falls in the same area and criteria, but Avatar wears its influences on its sleeves. This is not even the first time Nickelodeon dipped their toes into anime. The creators took influence from Chinese culture and architecture. The creators have influence working on shows that were sent overseas to Korea. They had a martial arts consultant to get the Benny moods just right. On the subject of art, this show looks gorgeous. The lighting always signifies the mood. There's a good chunk of creativity with the animals the show dishes out. The soundtrack by Jeremy Zuckerman uses Middle Eastern and Chinese instruments, creating an authentic orchestral flair to the presentation. The main trio of Aang, Katara, and Sokka are usually the main force behind the story. Katara is motherly, usually the glue that holds the gang together, but she can be easily frustrated or reckless. Sokka longs to be a warrior, plays out as a voice of reason, but his arrogance or humility can overshadow him. And Aang, as the Avatar, is wise beyond his years, but can also be stressed or hard on himself. The fourth member, Toph, is blind and fights by sensing vibrations. Deep down, she feels it's a weakness, but her confidence in blindness makes her stronger. Moments like this peel away layers of these characters, showing vulnerable or insecure sides. Toph was originally going to be a boy due to network standards, but the creators fought to keep her a girl. Now that's commitment. This is what led to the creation of Korra. The main antagonist of the show, Zuko, also has layers. His pride and hot-headed attitude stems from talking against the Fire Lord, so capturing the Avatar is his only hope. Just like the previous entry, TMT 2012, there's small nods or plot points that foreshadow future elements or recontextualize past events, or characters that would be fleshed out in later episodes. Avatar is one of the few shows to get a definite story progression and conclusion, meaning the creators planned everything from the start. This show set the standard for overarching stories, filler episodes, and character arcs. The popularity lasted long enough for a successor to air, including a Netflix series that the creators were involved in first, but not anymore. From what I've seen, it seems to be doing the show more justice. Hopefully more justice than the 2010 theatrical film, because Avatar The Last Airbender deserves all the praise it's gotten from viewers. To quote the creators, we just pour our heart, soul, and life experience into the show every day. But there's one show that I hold just a bit higher, so let's continue.
I can't! Oh, forget it!
They're not here, Helga. They never showed up.
What? Arnold! Did you hear something just now? No.
Hey Arnold is that one laid-back show that resonates with me the most. What started out as stop-motion clay shorts went from being featured in Simpsons Illustrated magazines to a 1994 pilot to a flagship show lasting 8 years. I bring up Simpsons Illustrated because creator Craig Bartlett is married to Lisa Green, Matt Green's actual sister, so these two are brothers-in-law. Hey Arnold features the life of the titular football-headed kid, Arnold, and all the adventures that he brings along with his 4th grade pals. Bartlett described the show as a successor of sorts to Peanuts, with its down-to-earth cast and struggles they face. Most notably, the jazz music that complemented that melancholy feel. The music of the show is very soothing or jammy, depending on the mood. I found myself listening to these tunes occasionally. Arnold was my introduction to jazz, so it gets thumbs up for that too. Hey Arnold was Bartlett's take on childhood, with each of the issues being seen from a kid's perspective, how life can be unfair. The show can be cynical just like Rocco, but it isn't too cruel, and seen as more realistic. Arnold himself is the Zen child, the optimist, always striving to do the right thing, even after he unintentionally makes someone's life miserable. He's like if you took Aang's wisdom and Mikey Simon's screwing up and put it in a positive light. The cast themselves can be seen as generic, but they're able to stand out on their own in some capacity. Gerald, Arnold's best friend, is the realistic one. Harold went from a generic bully to a bully with an insecure and sensitive side. Phoebe is smart, but timid. Rodney can be stuck up, Sid can be paranoid, and Curly is a psychopath. Definitely relatable. Helga steals the show. Her tomboyish rude attitude, compiled with her infatuation with Arnold, adds layers to her. Her personality comes from how inattentive her family is, especially the hot-headed Big Bob, her dad. This show can get dark at certain places. The kids think they took a train to hell. Mr. Huin's daughter was separated by a war. A A woman murdered her former groom and sister out of jealousy and committed suicide afterwards. I'm not making that up, by the way. The kid characters are all voiced by kids, which I always prefer. It makes the performances more natural and relatable for the target audience. The show wrapped up with the episode The Journal, which answers what happened with Arnold's parents, seen back in Parents' Day. It ended on a cliffhanger and wasn't heard of again, until 2017 when the Jungle movie released. This movie had its moments of nostalgia and fan service, but it answers the biggest mystery the show ever had. If these follow-up movies prove that these shows still have an audience, I don't know what would. It was certainly better than Hey Arnold the movie. Hey Arnold was a staple for Nickelodeon shows of the 90s, emphasizing that kids first mentality the network used to have. It's a comfort show and a heartwarming show at that, and that's why it's my favorite Nickelodeon show of all time.
You know, Arnold, did a good thing helping Torvald pass that test.
You mean because now he knows that he has the power inside himself to succeed no matter what he tries?
No, because now I don't have to pay him back that quarter I owe.
You're a real romantic, Gerald.
Thanks, pal. So are you.
And that wraps up my countdown. Even though I think Nickelodeon isn't the network it used to be, they still had some great content back then. In later years, Nickelodeon has greenlit some original projects, such as Middlemost Post and Glitch Text, though nothing has been heard of them since. The only show I've watched from the network recently is Big Nate, an adaptation of a 1991 comic strip about a 6th grader and the shenanigans he faces in middle school and home. It feels like a throwback to slice of life or adventure shows back in the day. The network has even rebranded itself by changing its logo with the Nick splat and having bumpers varying in art style. They're kind of poking at nostalgia, but it seems like Nickelodeon is slowly returning to their roots. These 10 shows prove that Nickelodeon had creativity and trust in their creators. There are probably some other shows I neglected to mention, so feel free to comment on some of your favorites down below. Thank you all for watching. I'm AJ Pearson, and if you excuse me, I have some more memories to retain.
Dragon cauldron, a jar full of eyes. Fantasy backwards. One seahorse.